I hope we're doing okay. Thank you guys for coming out today. Um, I hope you've had an amazing time so far. So, I'm Damilola Majekodunmi. A little bit about me. I'm a front-end engineer, software engineer, and I've been working as one for the past 6 years. I've worked at companies like PiggyVest and recently Flutterwave, where I worked for almost 4 years. Um, I started out as a designer, and then shortly after, I got into front-end engineering. Then after that, I did both. Then I decided to stick with front-end engineering. So I know that there might be some people here that were confused as I was when I started, or are currently in that confused path, and I hope you stick to one thing. Um, so yeah, today I'm here to talk about something that's very important to me. And I believe it's important to you too if you're here, which is building for everyone and making the web accessible. So let's get into it. In 2021, I think, usable.net carried out a survey, and they found out that with over 500 developers, they found out that only 50% of them truly understood what web accessibility meant. So today we're going to break that ice. We're going to change that for everyone. Our topic here today is what about us? Making room for everyone through our code. We're going to talk about what accessibility is, what it isn't. We'll talk about the people that we often miss out on, or people that we often ignore when we don't think about accessibility. We'll talk about the mistakes that we make as developers or as a team. And lastly, we'll talk about how we can improve or change this. Right. So when we hear the term accessibility, or when we think of accessibility, can anybody here tell me what they understand by accessibility? Anybody? Please don't be shy. Okay, can someone give him a mic? Someone wants to answer? Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Such a way that individuals who might be challenged in some way, or who might have some restrictions, or who might have even like a different language, for example, will be able to take advantage of the product. Um, at least that means you consider them when you design that, and they're able to access that.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much. That's a very lovely answer. Can I get another? Do you want to answer? Does anybody? A female dev, yes, thank you. Perfect. Someone wants to answer there.
Okay. Accessibility is simply creating room where there is no limit to who can have access or who can make use of the particular platform.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So before I go into the definition of accessibility, I want to talk about the fact that um, most times when we build, we often have conversations about who we're building for and how it should work for them. But sometimes we often miss out on how well things should work for them. And that's why we're having this conversation today. I'm very glad that the answers that I've gotten shows that you actually really understand what accessibility means. And by this definition, we can see that accessibility ensures that as many people as possible can use the web effectively across different contexts, conditions, regardless of their ability, device, or environment. I see many people say accessibility is tied to disability. That means building for only disabled people. This is wrong. By this definition, we can see that accessibility is also about the user's location, the type of device they're using, what kind of network they're on, where they're located, and so much more. So now that we have a good understanding of what accessibility is, let's discuss what it isn't, because that's very important. It's not limited to disability, like I said. It's tied to where a user currently is. Where are they located? What kind of environment are they in? What kind of network do they use? What kind of phones do they have? It's not just a front-end concern. I see people say this a lot. It's not the responsibility of only a front-end engineer to ensure accessibility. This should be a concern for the whole dev chain and the whole dev team throughout the process, from the PM to the designers, to the QAs, the testers, to your back-end engineers. And I'll explain why shortly. It's not an afterthought in the dev process. It's not something that you should consider after you have developed something or when you're ready to ship things. but rather before. You should have many conversations on who you are trying to build for and how you can accommodate every single person. And it's not optional. It's very, very, very important. So why does it matter? We're going to get to the root of the problem. Do you know that there are 4.3 billion people with smartphones today? Let's not even get into people that use laptops. It's mind-blowing, it's very wild. And we have about 8 billion people in the world. What does this mean? This means that we have billions of potential users for our products. We also have billions of people accessing the internet every day with different devices, different continents, different places. So I hope you can have an understanding of the gravity and how serious accessibility is then. So we've discussed what accessibility is, what it isn't, why it matters. Let's look at the overlooked side. The people that we often forget when we don't think about accessibility, when we don't take it seriously. One, people from diverse linguistic backgrounds. What do I mean by this? Like I said earlier, we have 7 continents in the world. We have over 8 billion people. That means there are billions of people from different regions that speak different languages. And sometimes we often miss out to consider them when we're building. 2, people with different devices, different performance constraints. What does this mean? There are different types of phones out there today. We have the iPhones with their Apple operating system, the iOS. We have the Androids with their Android operating systems, each of them with their own performance constraints. And sometimes we don't think about the limitations that these devices have when we're building. 3, people with limited or unstable internet connection. What do I mean by this? Sometimes we assume that everybody, and I've experienced this before, we assume that people that are going to use our products have the same internet access as us. So we believe that they have the same experience when they're on the internet, and that's wrong. We have people with terrible nets or people in remote areas. So we should build while respecting this, their experience or their conditions in mind. For people with environmental and situational limitations, we need to think about people using your product or your web app or your website in certain conditions that are not convenient. For example, let's say there's somebody trying to watch a video on your website in a noisy environment. Do you have text options? Do you have subtitles? If it doesn't have that, that's an inconvenience for that person, and they will find your web app or your website useless to them at that moment. Lastly, people rely on assistive tools, and this is also important. These are the disabled people or people that cannot use it fully to the full experience. These are people that rely on voice controls or screen readers. So now let's dive in deeper into each of these categories by looking at these graphs. Looking at the environmental and situational limitations, we can see bright sunlight or glare. This just asks the question, how well can someone navigate through your website when they're outside? Let's say it's very bright outside and the sun is heavy and they're trying to do something. How easy is it for them to do that? How easy is it for them to move from one page to another or take certain actions? We have noisy environments, like I've said earlier. Do you have other options? Do you have image alternatives? Do you have voice text options? Do you have light mode or dark mode? Different settings that accommodate the person's environmental situation. Lastly, multitasking or one-handed use. Let's say we have a chef that is using your app. Obviously, his right hand or his left hand is busy cooking. Can he conveniently use his other hand to use the app and take certain actions? Are the gestures convenient for his only active or free hand, rather? Next, we have device or performance constraints. Like I said earlier, these are people with old iPhones. How well does our website or web app work for phones that the performance aren't so fast, or that this network isn't so great, or browsers like the Internet Explorer 9 or whatever old browser that some people might be using? So we need to consider these things. Internet limitations, like I've said earlier, slow and unstable network. Do you have data-heavy experiences? Do you have things on your website that once somebody that is managing their data, once they visit it, within seconds, their data is wiped and they have to start spending money on more data? These are the things we have to consider. Diverse backgrounds, we have to consider different languages, cultural context, differences, usage differences. For example, in Europe, when dealing with currencies, they use commas instead of full stop, and full stops instead of commas. So we have to ask ourselves, are we considering people in different regions as well? Now, why do we miss out on these things? We often miss out because when we build on fast and strong internet. So we believe, well, everybody also has fast internet. When we test in quiet spaces, bright spaces. So we say, okay, that's the same for everyone. And we often ship to regions that we've never lived in, and we assume that these conditions are ideal by default. And this is wrong. So now I'm going to go into the common pitfalls that we make as developers, as a team, in relating to accessibility. So, one, missing loading and offline states. This is when your website has no um, loading state or has no way of telling the user that data is coming or you're fetching something and they just see a blank screen. I see this a lot, and this is one accessibility mistake. This can be a device or network constraint. Data-heavy experiences is also a network constraint because you're visiting a website, there's so many images, so many videos that are so heavy. Before everything is as loaded, you don't have data anymore. On localized content, imagine someone from, let's say, someone that speaks French trying to visit your website, and it's all in English. I mean, there's Google Translate, but how well does Google Translate actually work sometimes? I've seen issues where Google translates the language not in a perfect way. So you can handle this by doing the localized or creating localized content for each region manually. Low contrast or color schemes. This is when your website has poor colors that don't work well for people that have eyesight issues or people that are outside in the sun. Poor backwards compatibility. When you're using some semantics or something in your code that doesn't work well on older browsers, and I'm going to go deeper into this very soon. Improper semantic markups, using one HTML tag for another, like using a div to create a button. That's very wrong. No accessible alternatives for media. Like I mentioned earlier, when you have images that don't have alternative text, when you have videos that don't have subtitles, layouts that don't adapt gracefully. I'm going through your website and I try to use it on my phone and it doesn't look the same. Because imagine you're visiting a website and to go back initially you're seeing a back button and another page you have to swipe to go back. That's very inconsistent. Overly complex language, when you have too much grammar or something that's not easily understandable by the layman. Multi-gesture precision or heavy interactions. As a rule of thumb, I always say you shouldn't have any interaction on your website or gestures that will make you use more than 2 thumbs to pinch or just to scroll through. So when you have anything more than that, that's just an inconvenience to your users. Keyboard-only navigation failures. For people that have bad keyboards or people that can't see or people that only navigate through their keyboards, most websites actually that I've seen don't have keyboard navigation. And that's wrong. So this is one mistake that people make. I know it already has prompts that explains it, but can someone here tell me what the issue is or what the mistake that the developer is making here? My front-end devs in the house. Anybody, please? Okay, that's fine. So we have a button that when you click on it, it's meant to show a modal. And they're using a dialog HTML tag. This is fine, but it wouldn't work on older browsers. When you're trying to click on this button to see the modal on older browsers, it wouldn't work. You wouldn't see a pop-up. Why? Because this HTML tag is recent, and it doesn't work well with older browsers. So an alternative to doing this is to either do this for newer browsers, create your modal from scratch for older browsers, or just scrap this out since you know it doesn't work well for all the browsers available. Another mistake that people make is using styles that are also not supported by older browsers. You're creating a card, and there's a backdrop filter meant to create a shadow behind that card. And you use backdrop filter. It would work in some browsers, but then again, in other older browsers, it wouldn't work. An alternative is to use box shadow. This is also an issue, responsiveness. You can see this website, it looks fairly good on a tab, and then on a mobile phone, it looks just the same. You have to pinch to move through, and I wouldn't even be using this website for too long. It's so stressful to navigate through. Yeah, this is another issue that people make with improper semantic markup. The developer is trying to use a span tag for a link and a div tag for a button. This is very wrong. It might work, or it would even work, but this would be very bad when a user is trying to do something like a keyboard navigation, or when they're trying to use, mostly keyboard navigation for that reason. And it's always advised to always use HTML tags that are meant for a specific purpose. Use divs for containers, use a tag for links, use button for buttons, use p tag for text. Don't try and shift things up, because you never know what you're breaking in your code. This is another issue with localization. At the top, you can see an Egyptian website that I visited. And it didn't translate fully for me. There's some English and there's some Arabic. And I tried to use Google Translate, and this was what I saw. And I had to find another website to look for the information I was looking for. As you can see, it's an inconvenience for me, because they could have easily just localized their content. And this is another website I visited. This is the Canada website below with localization. While I was in France, I visited this website, and it immediately translated it to me in French. I don't speak French, but you can see at the top right, I can change it back to English. That's good. You're anticipating that the user doesn't just stay in one location, and you're building content for that purpose. This is the Web Content Accessibility Guideline. This is a website that you can use to check how colors mesh, how they work well for your website. As you can see, this shade of blue and this shade of white don't go well for many reasons. They don't go well for small text, they don't go well for large text, they wouldn't go well for UI components. If someone's trying to view it outside, it will be bad. If someone has eye problem and they're reading text or something that you put with these two shades, they're very wrong. And this is what I mean when I say it is not just a front-end concern. A designer can also go here to pick the colors they want to use for a project or something that they have coming up. So by using this, you're able to pick colors that work well on the web, that work well for people that have eye problems, that work well for people that are in different settings. So yeah, color contrast is one of the easiest accessibility checks to overlook. Always test contrast clearly. Now let's talk about the practical improvements. We've talked about the many mistakes that we can make. Now let's talk about the improvements. I always like to follow a guideline, which is to focus on performance, focus on responsiveness, consistency, test and retest. But before that, we have to plan things before a line of code. Before every single line of code, everybody in the team has to come together. When we have an idea of what we're trying to build, you would discuss the priority users, you discuss the constraints. What are we trying to do? You talk to the designers, these are the colors we need, developers, how are we going to focus on people in different locations? How are we going to test for people with bad networks? Do we have devices to test for different devices? Things like that. Backend too are not left out. You can cache data. I know there's Redis or something like that that you can use to make sure that data gets faster to the user. You create an inclusion checklist, you stick to it, and then you set budgets for that. Now, like I said, I follow a guideline. Starting with performance, you have to load like you respect your user's time and data. How do we do this? On the front end, you make sure that you have loaders. On the back end, you can cache data, you cache smartly, you optimize your images, you preload content to make sure that it gets to the user faster. Build for the broadest range of devices and contexts. Test on many devices. Early in my career, when I was building a React Native app, as you know, works on iPhones and Androids. And I was only testing on my iPhone. And I didn't realize that the date input that we were using wasn't working properly. So when it got to the QA and they tested on both phones, realized I was wrong. And you can imagine how I must have felt to know that I didn't think of testing on another device. So you have to think outside the box. You need to have that conversation. You need to test for every single possible device that you can. Cache smartly, like I said. On the front end, you can cache with your normal REST. You can cache with GraphQL. You can also cache on the back end, like I said, with Redis. Keep interactions forgiving and slow on unstable networks. Sometimes you don't have to use some serious interactions or animations. Sometimes you just have to keep things simple. You have to consider that this thing might be too heavy for someone's phone. It might not work or might not be as beautiful as it is for people's devices that are slow. Now move to responsiveness. Make the UI responsive by default. Make sure that anywhere somebody is looking at your website, it looks clean, it looks beautiful, whether it is their tab, their laptops, their phones, TVs, even microwave. Everywhere you're looking at the website, it should be smooth and beautiful. Ensure the layouts adapt gracefully. When I tilt my screen the other way, it should go smoothly. It shouldn't look rough. It shouldn't look messy. Avoid designs that assume precision or high-end hardware. Avoid designs that assume that everybody has the same condition, everybody can use it the same way, everybody has the same amount of fingers, or everybody knows what they're doing. I always say, for example, if you have a drag and drop feature on a web app, on a mobile app, find something else. You can't expect users to be dragging and dropping on their mobile phones. Support one-handed use and low precisions. This is very similar to the last one. Consistency. Localize your content properly. Make sure that you know where your users are coming from. You can track them with Google analysis, see where they're coming from. Even if you don't start initially by localizing, you can eventually build for where you see your users are coming from. Use clear and simple language that is easily read in a second language. Respect local formats for time, date, and currencies. Many different currencies have different time formats. Some people use the 24 hours format. Some people use the 12 hours format. Some people have their dates in months, dates, and years. Some people have years, dates, and months. Know all these things and create for that purpose. Currencies as well, like I've mentioned earlier, and numbers. Use predictable patterns. I know that iPhone users are very used to swiping to go back. So try and do that as well. Use something that people are used to. Use gestures that people are really used to, so you don't have to start building something new. So this is a screen that you're trying to visit, and you can see that it just shows a blank screen. You're trying to visit example.com, and it's just blank. And this is another one that shows a skeleton. This is called a skeleton. A skeleton is like a layout of what the actual screen will look like when data is loaded. This clearly is better. At least you know that your data is coming. You know that this is how the page will look like. So you wait patiently. If you're on this side, you don't know what's happening. You think maybe it's your network, or you think the website has crashed, and you can leave. So always try to anticipate different scenarios when data takes longer. Now, lastly, you test like your users. You throttle and you break things. You test on bad networks, test on good networks, on slow performances as well. Test with many devices as possible. Observe and adjust as much as you can. This is a screen that I know a few front-end engineers will know here. When you inspect a page, you will see this performance tab. And what you can see here is some metrics and some settings. So on the left, you can see the matrix LCP, that's largest contentful paint. What that means is how long does it take for for the content to arrive on the user's browser. Anything over 4 seconds is really bad. The number starts to show a green light. So you know you either have to preload the content, you have to either compress your images, or even use a content delivery network like a CDN to handle the images so it gets faster to the user. Cumulative layout shift, this basically means how much does your website jump when new content is loaded? Like, are there images that are making it to jump? And this is where we can use skeletons, or we can also set a fixed width for our images so the page doesn't shift or things readjust when data is loaded. And this honestly shouldn't be more than 0.2 or 0.3, because that means that something is very wrong with our web page. We have the interaction to next page. This tells us how long does it take for our website to get interactive? How long does it take for us to click a button or to move to a next page, or for things to get usable? And this is the perfect time. Anything larger than this means that you need to check your JavaScript code to see how things are running. On the right, we have environmental settings. I'm sure you must have been wondering, how do we test on slower networks? You can throttle your network. By using the network no throttling, you can reduce the speed of your internet. So you see how your website behaves when the network is very, very slow. CPU as well, you can throttle the performance of your laptop. So you can see what is happening when your network, when your laptop works very slowly. So these are very, very important tools. Now, in conclusion, can we actually make room for everyone? I think it's up to you. I think that we may not be able to reach everyone right now, but we can make it more accessible for more people than we have today.
Anyone with a question?
My friend.
All right, thank you very much. That was very engaging, and these are things that even as a backend engineer, I know I can actually work on. So, for example, the caching. So, but my question is that is accessibility about seeing every feature, or is there room for compromise? Because I remember in the should I say web 0.1, so to say, like in the days when we used to use this Opera Mini and all of that. So sometimes you visit some websites, so they will clearly tell you that okay, you have to kind of maybe have this Symbian phone or something like that before you could access that. So is there still room for that, or does it have to be that every single feature has to be represented? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. So, no, yes, actually, there's room for compromise. Like I said, initially, you might not know the users that are visiting your website. So you can use an analysis to check where they're coming from. I know we use that Flutterwave to see the countries that people are coming from, and then we created localized content for people in Africa, French content for the West African countries. We created English normal content. We created different languages. So you don't always have to get everything right initially, but try your best. I mean, like as you go, once you create that inclusion checklist, as a team, you decide what actually matters right now, what you can achieve within the time frame that you have. Then you can create it for later sprints to improve or to add the other features. So yes, it's not like a compulsion, but it's a good to have.